People who have called 911. Why? Saw someone torch a car in my apartment complex while I was out delivering papers in the pre-dawn hours. Car slammed into the back of another car at a busy three-way intersection during a thunderstorm, sending the first car across the intersection and into the trees. Two sets of douches in lifted pickups racing each other between stoplights on a busy highway, cutting drivers off left and right. Solo car accident on a turnpike extension during a pop-up thunderstorm. Car spun out and hit the guardrail a few times. Jackholes trying to turn their cute little campfire mere feet from a tree line, chock full of dry underbrush into a bonfire as the beer flowed. I called 911 a while ago because our carbon monoxide detector went off. They sent the fire department who determined that the detector was just old and had malfunctioned. So, that was embarrassing. Better to be embarrassed than dead. Hey, you did the right thing. If it happens again, you call 911. You never know. Yeah, that's basically what my dad told me. I called him to ask him what to do and told him I would be embarrassed if I called over just nothing. And he said that a lot of calls to emergency services end up being just nothing. And they'd way rather it be nothing than something. On a city street at dusk, a man had cornered a woman and was twisting her arm. She was shouting for help. During a drought under high fire alert, someone had thrown a lit cigarette into an outdoor trash bin. Flames were leaping several feet into the air. Brawl in a public transit station. Witnessed a hit and run driver leaving the scene of an accident. Memorized the license plate number before losing sight of the vehicle. Saw a driver rush the wrong way down a one-way street. It was weaving through head-on traffic. Reported a partial license plate and the make, model, and color of the vehicle. I called the regular dispatch for my city when my ex-boyfriend was driving by my house repeatedly, then got out of his truck and rang my doorbell a bunch of times. He got back in his truck and left right as someone answered. I described to him what he was doing, his truck, etc. Dispatch told me to dial 911 if he came back. He came back and rang the doorbell again as well as jiggling the door knob. Called 911. Told them what was going on, and while I was on the phone he spotted me through the window and stood there staring at me until the cops showed up. My mother had gone into an AutoZone for a new gas cap for her RV, and it had been right around closing time, so she called ahead to see if they could stay open for a couple extra minutes. When we got there, my friend and I stayed in the RV while she went in, and about 5 minutes later she came back bawling. She walked in on an armed robbery and the robber took her phone and wallet. She ran out while he was distracted. I called the police and stayed on the line to tell them where we were and where the robber was running, because soon after he left on foot. Pretty scary experience. Was in my place of work when a nice lady and her 2 children walked up to the counter. I told her it'd be right there, to which she responded okay, followed by a very loud clunk. I heard crying and walked around the counter to see her laying on the floor with some blood near her head. I guess she was very dehydrated, and that combined with the 85-ish degree weather was enough for her to pass out. A coworker and I made sure she was okay and called 911 for instruction while waiting for an ambulance. Still working at the same place, no similar incidents since. So the story goes, me and my cousin were about 5, and while my cousin was playing video games in the same room, my smart self and my cousin decided to call 911 and didn't think anything of it. Well, about 10 minutes later the police come to the house with the lights blaring trying to open the door. When my dad opened the door they started questioning him, asking who called 911, trying to explain the situation. Then my cousin fished me out to the police, then they made me apologize, then the police drove away. Sorry for the abrupt ending P. I was having a overdose. I passed out and stopped breathing while still on the call, and I never gave my location because I could barely speak. Eventually, my girlfriend found me laying on the bathroom floor not breathing, pale, and drenched in sweat. My girlfriend did CPR on me and eventually got me breathing again, but just barely. My pulse was back, but it was slow and weak. Luckily, she was able to give the 911 operator our location and told them what had happened. I've called twice. Once because my store was broken into and robbed. The other was because I realized my slow blood loss had reached critical and I couldn't wait until my doctor's appointment the next day. I was really lightheaded, dizzy, and I could barely think straight and knew I needed to go to the ER. I had only 1.3 the normal blood volume and needed a 10-unit transfusion. I was coming home from my 22nd birthday and came across a car crashed into a tree. 3 men were in the car. I will never forget the look on the man's face and how scared he was. They hit the tree so hard the driver and the front seat passenger had been thrown into the back of the car and the tree was where the driver had been. It was a pretty horrific accident, but I later found out they all survived. I've made a few calls. Most recent was finding a woman collapsed on the side of the road from a drug overdose. Before that was coming up on a rollover accident with the driver ejected. The first was when I was 11, and it was because my best friend was driving his go-kart like a maniac through our neighborhood. Fuck you, Justin, you cold really bruised a shin with that recklessness. Had an armed robbery at home. 2 guys burst in and proceeded to do what robbers do, tie you up and ransack the house. Don't actually remember making the call or being told to make it. No time from South Africa, so this is unfortunately common. Secondly, this happened 3 years ago, so I'm all fine. Thirdly, I didn't get shot or harmed in any way. At my last job, I heard a loud thud. I looked at the direction. I saw a headlight really close to the window and smoke from the car. A coworker's mom ran into our building. She was trying to back up, but it was on drive. So I alerted my manager at the office and called 911. No one was hurt, but the mom was sore from the incident. I called 911 one time because my neighbors were screaming and yelling while pounding on their own front door. It was 12:00 at night and they were sounding crazy AF. So I called the police, and apparently it was just a daughter who was angry about her parents kicking her out and not letting her back in. I had my very first phone, a Razor. Those things are badass BTW. I was like 7 or so and wanted to see if it actually worked. It did. I hung up immediately, hid under my covers because I was scared that the police would locate my address and arrest me for hanging up on them. Haha. A friend was over and just started having a seizure. I've never experienced anyone doing this before, so I freaked out and called the cops. They got there and drilled us about doing drugs until they realized she had an allergic reaction to a medication and none of us had or were doing drugs. Twice because of fires. First, I was walking Main Street and saw a very small fire. It was a dry, windy day and the fire spread quick. Second, a guy on the corner let a firework get away from him. His yard went up in flames. No damage to the house. Called the Australian equivalent when I was a kid because me and my cousin were messing around with an old phone that we thought was disconnected and we just put it in. We heard it ringing. Someone said hello and we immediately hung up and freaked out. We were like 7 or something. Dangerous large items on the freeway, like a mattress. They connect me to the highway patrol who asks where the item is. I like to think it has helped someone. Oh, and because my house was on fire. Lots of damage, but nobody hurt, thankfully. Couple arguing, screeching on the street outside my flat when he pulled a knife with a foot-long blade as she cowered on the floor against the wall. I called the cops. When they tried to arrest him, she started screaming at the cops and jumping on them, so they took her too. Saw a car wreck, working in a dodgy hotel about 5x. Guy I knew was threatening to drink poison via phone. Someone did a drive-by on our house. Friend called me having a low blood pressure thing and was going in and out of consciousness. I dropped a knife on my foot last month and blood was pulsating out. The blood reached the counters. Please tell me you exclaimed, "Count it," as the knife entered your foot and the blood spurted up to the counter. I saw domestic violence in a car. It was very loud and early in the morning. I wouldn't forgive myself if something really bad happened to that person and I never did anything or tried to do something. At work, a coworker yelled at me to call 911 because someone had collapsed, not someone I knew. They had a heart attack, but I heard they recovered. In high school my friend was hit with a car by a pregnant security guard worker from our school. I didn't know what to do as I was waiting, so I just kept massaging his ear. Was robbed while asleep. Only realized once I woke up, found the tire iron that they used to bend my gate open on the floor next my bed. Fun times. A couple months ago, I called 911 after I drove past a dude pacing in the middle of the road, talking casually on the phone. My sister's BF was stung by a stingray and passed out. We had no idea what was happening, so I was asked to call 911. I walked out of a grocery store and noticed that trees were on fire right beside power lines, and it was spreading quickly towards some houses, multiple times. So far all for my brother having seizures. I hope to never have to call again, but I know that's highly unlikely. I've called them numerous times, but my favorite has to be the time a bunch of transvestites were fighting in IHOP. So much was going. Crazy driver, blasted by at 90 plus, while weaving through traffic, and cutting people off. Don't know if they caught him. My mom called 911 once, because she saw a cow in a field outside its fence. We still bring it up from time to time. I work at a CR union that has a drive-through area. Somehow a lady gets her hand caught in the door to send the tubes to us. My ex made a half-hearted suicide attempt and I figured that whatever was going on in her head was better handled by professionals. I didn't get my chicken nuggets. They have chicken nuggets in Africa? Well, you are good boy. Our tenders. A person crashed into a car next to me, and 2 people went flying through the windshield of the car that caused the accident. Neighbor's target practice caused stray bullets. Had to belly crawl to the phone. The house across the street took a few hits because I drank the warm milk my brother was making while at 6:00 instead of my soda. The morning of my wedding day, a car exploded and caught fire right outside my hotel room. Sub did a triple barrel roll on the highway and thankfully landed right side up. Someone at my bedroom window, ground floor, trying to get in to report a domestic abuse I heard going on across the hall. My grandpa almost died of multiple tumors in his chest.